Hello, sixth grade. So, starting today and for the rest of the next 2 weeks, in the back, we are going to be doing videos on current issues and then also completing a worksheet that ties in the math concepts we have learned this year and in previous years with those current issues. So, we're integrating the math that we've known in a much broader context. You are going to be graded on the questions that you answer in these videos. It will be your exit ticket for the day since we will not be switching and going up front. So make sure you're paying attention. I thought it was appropriate for this week to start off with standardized tests since we finally just finished up our last standardized test last week. I'm sure you guys are all happy to be rid of them. And it's actually recently a really important issue that's being brought up a lot in conversations about whether they're effective. So we're going to be analyzing the question, are standardized tests effective? So here are a list of some pros which you can fill out on your worksheet. One of the pros of standardized tests is that 93% of studies done on student testing found that there was a positive effect on student achievement, meaning that standardized tests help students achieve more in school. Second, most parents approve of standardized tests. Third, it works for China. China has a very long tradition of standardized tests, and they are the #1 country in education in the world. So why couldn't it work for the US as well? Fourth, standardized tests are unbiased, which means that you can compare scores between schools. Whereas if me and Mrs. Perez were to make a test, you wouldn't be able to compare the grade you guys got on that test to a grade at another school because the test would be different. The teachers would be making a different test. The teachers could be grading it differently. It's a biased test, so you can't compare scores across schools. And lastly, they motivate both students and teachers to succeed throughout the year because there's a long-term goal at the end of the year. Some cons of standardized tests is that it's actually shown that they have not improved student achievement in the US. In the past 10 years, there's been a huge push to increase standardized testing, and we actually have not grown at all in terms of our ranking in education. Second, they cause severe stress in some students, which some of you might have experienced last week, and it's a lot more common in the younger grades as well. Third, it encourages teachers to teach to the test. Teach to the test means that teachers are teaching students just the material that they need to know in order to succeed on the test, rather than the most important and valuable things that they need to know to succeed in life. Fourth, it narrows the curriculum, or it can narrow the curriculum at schools so that more time is spent on math and ELA, and time gets cut from science, social studies, and arts classes for that purpose. And lastly, it's an unreliable measure of student and teacher performance. There are a lot of factors that can affect a student's test score. It's been shown that race, demographic, socioeconomic background all has an impact on test scores, or all has a correlation with test scores. And also it measures a very specific set of skills and not necessarily the overall growth of a student. And for those same reasons, it's really hard to measure teachers' performance using those same scores, even though that's often how teachers are measured as well. Lastly, before we get to the worksheet, we're going to watch a bit of this video. So this video is John Oliver. He used to be in Saturday Night Live, and he's a comedian. Looks like this video is not working here, so I'll bring it up on YouTube. He did a segment recently on standardized testing. There we go. All right, we're only going to watch part of it because it's a long video and some of it is not very appropriate. So we're going to start at 3:54.
The explosion of testing can be traced back to the 90s, when you probably remember stories like these about the state of public education.
When 40 nations recently took the International Math and Science Test, American students scored near the bottom.
And that must have hurt. especially because you knew the French children weren't even trying. Go on, play with your silly numbers. They tell you nothing of the true nature of the soul. I weep for you. In response to statistics like that, in response to those kind of statistics, President George W. Bush, on just his third day in office, announced his No Child Left Behind program. It passed Congress with bipartisan support because, of course, it did. Voting against No Child Left Behind is like voting against No Puppy Left Unsnuggled. What monster would do that? His name is Patches, and he needs love. The program was designed to be data-driven and involve testing children every single year in order to identify and fix failing schools.
An accountability system must have a consequence. Otherwise, it's not much of an accountability system.
It's hard to argue with any of that. Unfortunately, accountability is one of those concepts that everybody's in favour of, but nobody knows. No Child Left Behind increased the number of federally mandated tests from 6 to 17. And the fixation on testing was something which our current president seemed to be against as he ran for office.
Don't tell us that the only way to teach a child is to spend too much of a year preparing him to fill out a few bubbles in a standardized test. We know that's not true.
Wow, that man knew how to pander to teachers. And you know what else? There should be pool tables in the teacher's lounge. And every year you should be able to slap one parent. Vote for me. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Vote for me. But once this president took office, he didn't get rid of tests. Instead, he added his own education initiatives like Race to the Top, which encouraged states to adopt the Common Core, which... He does have a point. He does have a point. If a test fails to reflect ability, there are human consequences. Because one shy Florida 8th grader who had a near-perfect score in her advanced language arts class was asked to leave it last year due to her inexplicably low scores on the FCAT. And last fall, she told a school board meeting exactly how that felt.
Every year I do good in school, but I get low test scores on the FCAT, and it feels like a punch in the stomach. This is unfair, and I don't want to lose my opportunity to take my advanced classes or get better education because of this one test.
That is just awful. I take back everything I said about wanting to take a standardized test. In fact, you know what? Bring out the monkey. Bring out the monkey. No, turn off his... Look, we've had more than a decade of standardized testing now, and maybe it's time to put the test to the test. The original goal was to narrow the achievement gap and boost our scores relative to the rest of the world. Well, a 2013 study found no support for the idea that No Child Left Behind narrowed the achievement gap, and our scores on the international tests have not only failed to rise, they're slightly down. And I do not want to hear what that French kid thinks of those results. Oh, all this time and all this money, and your race to the top has been, how you say, a meandering jog on a treadmill. All of this calls for a little of what both presidents asked for when selling their reforms.
Higher standards are the right goal. Accountability is the right goal.
An accountability system must have a consequence. Otherwise, it's not much of an accountability system.
Right, so let's look at that, because as far as I can see, this is a system which has enriched multiple companies and that pays and fires teachers with a cattle birthing formula, confuses children with talking pineapples, and has the same kind of rules regarding transparency that Brad Pitt had for Fight Club. So for Pearson, the other companies, and all the lawmakers who have supported this system, the true test is going to be either convincing everyone it works or accepting it doesn't work and fixing it. Because at the risk of sounding like a standardized test scorer, your numbers are not good. And if it seems unfair to have your fates riding on a complicated metric that fails to take institutional factors into account and might not even tell the whole story, well, you're not wrong about that, but you do not get to complain about it. And if all this pressure to increase your numbers is making you feel nauseous, like you might vomit at any second, then don't worry. I've got 4 words for you that'll make you feel better. Here comes the monkey!
Okay, now go ahead and finish those math questions on your worksheet, and then at the end, you'll have a chance to answer the question about whether you personally think standardized tests are an effective way of measuring students. Good luck.